Nation.
SMD Law is the official law firm of the Spartan Nation. Check them out on the interwebs at smdalaw.com or at 866-529-3537. No matter where you are in the state of Michigan, Upper Peninsula, Lower Peninsula, it doesn't matter. They have an office near you. So whether you need to send a letter to an annoying neighbor, or you're a criminal and you need defense, maybe you just have problems with elder law, check them out, smdalaw.com today. The official law firm of the Spartan Nation. Call them first. Then you act.
Welcome back, Spartan Nation Radio. Again, Matt Hladik from thespun.com, the greatest sports aggregate site on the web. It's part of my favorites. It should be yours, thespun.com. Going around the world of college football like we do in segment number 2 each and every week. Matt, we briefly touched on it in the first segment, but because this one is all dedicated to college football, I want to go back to it. James Franklin loses a big recruit to Ohio State. Ryan Day, first year at Ohio State, and he's already flipping recruits from James Franklin. He got coaches from Michigan. And we talked about is the luster off of Franklin. And you talked about how his name is always surfacing at other places. Here's the question I have about James Franklin. And I want you to be honest. When you go back to Vanderbilt and look at his records against teams that finished in the top 25, he was terrible. He just scheduled a ton of cupcakes. Then he goes to he goes to Penn State, and he tells the fans there, and you know this because I said it in the last segment, I love Penn State. Matt Millen is one of my very, very best friends who's a star there. I've got other great friends who played there. I love the people. I love the school. The idiocy that came about out of the press is not on the people or the players, and I'm not going to go to that because it's not fair. But I love the program. I want them to be great. Again, I want them to be Penn State. And I think James Franklin's a snake oil salesman. I think he can recruit. I think he's a terrible coach. But then he goes and he tells the fans when he gets the job at Penn State, we had better facilities at Vanderbilt. When he was at Vanderbilt, after he took the job, he had to wait for the NCAA to approve him because the school was on probation. He goes back to Vanderbilt and cried, told his players how much he loved them, how much he was going to be there, and he had already accepted the Penn State job. Matt, you may remember James Franklin's first Big Ten media days, I asked him the following question. You told your players at Vanderbilt that you were staying and you cried and told them how much you loved them when you'd already accepted the Penn State job. Then you go to Penn State and tell them you had better facilities at Vanderbilt. And those of us who've been to both know that's not true. Are you a liar or just disingenuous? And I got so much grief from Penn State fans. But the problem is I love Penn State. I'm just not a James Franklin guy. I'm curious because you keep talking about him being linked to all these other jobs, and he is. You're absolutely right. At what point does this guy actually have to win something big? Or is it just the fact that he should be selling used cars or used furniture on late-night commercials that this guy just keeps getting his name? What has he done?
Well, I will give him credit. I have to say, he did win a Big Ten title at Penn State a couple of years ago. Did, get them to the Rose Bowl. So I have to give him credit with that.
I agree. That's why I'm asking, and I'm letting you defend.
I think that when you take into account, I think what has sold him is, I know you mentioned his record against top 25 teams and scheduling at Vanderbilt, but I think when you look at the fact he was able to win 8-9 games at Vanderbilt, which is just the toughest program by far in the SEC to win at, and then he goes to Penn State, he does have that salesmanship aspect. He does recruit well. I think people are always going to buy into that, at least at first. And I think that's why he was able to, to come in and have a big, an impact in recruiting and, with PR first at Penn State. That's why I think he seems to garner a lot of attention from fans of outside programs or is linked to other jobs by the media or, different reports and speculation. So I do think that because of his personality, because of his recruiting acumen, that's why he's always going to be named to, those watch lists. Even if he doesn't have as gaudy of a wins and loss record as you may think he should, for for the game for the big game he talks.
If you are a Big Ten fan, you know that James Franklin can recruit, but you want him at Penn State. Because if they ever go get a real coach, oh dear God, Penn State's going to become a juggernaut. And I'm going to tell you, I'm just not a fan. All right, sticking in the Big Ten, I got a guy I want to ask you about. I want you to give me your honest opinion. He is my personal friend, and so I'm not going to comment because I am probably I would probably speak from a friendship standpoint. What are your thoughts on the job PJ Fleck's doing at Minnesota?
I think when we've discussed plenty of times on here when he first took the Minnesota job and the series he had on ESPN and the amount of PR and things that he got from that standpoint, selling the program, selling his mission, selling himself. He did a tremendous job. I think you look at what he's done on the field there. Listen, they were in a bowl game last year. They're starting to build things up there. I don't know how much success anyone can have consistently at Minnesota. I think you can win games there. I think you can make bowl games there, which he's shown, and other coaches have shown. I don't know if he's going to be able to turn Minnesota into a perennial contender in the Big Ten West when you're going up against a Wisconsin. You still have an Iowa. You have a rejuvenated Nebraska now. But I do think that PJ Fleck has done a very solid job, overall with what he has at Minnesota. So I think you can't really sell him short there.
All right, now I want to turn our attention to the University of Alabama. And since their new athletic director, Greg Byrne, took over, he's really talked about improving the fan experience because even at Alabama, all of them, Michigan State has just about ruined the game day experience there. But now they're going to put $93 million into Bryant-Denny Stadium, according to the Birmingham Business Journal, just to make it a better fan experience. They're going to still keep they're going to take the attendance to below 100,000, but that's going to be because they're going to be doing several different things. They're going to put new scoreboards, new suites upgrades. It's going to look like an entirely different stadium. What do you think of this? I love it. I love to see the continued expansion. I love to see it going back to a better game day experience. Your thoughts?
I think it's important when you look at college football nationwide, from the bottom of the barrel teams to the top of the heap, has had its share of attendance issues recently for various reasons. So I think that it's always important for programs, especially top programs, to stay ahead of the curve and to kind of read, the emotions and read the tea leaves of their fan base and what their fans want and what they need to deliver to their fans. Game day experience, I think, in this era has taken. I think it's always been a factor, but I think in the past, the game itself was enough. And I'm talking about not just college football. I'm talking about in all sports. I'm talking about Major League Baseball. I'm talking about in the NBA, the NFL. The game itself was almost enough. Now I think that when you look at how much money it costs to attend a game, you look at the time commitment it is, I think the game day experience is such a bigger factor in the stadium experience. So I think it's a good job on Alabama's part to kind of they have a ton of resources, try to see if they can have as much of an impact as possible, try to use those resources to ensure that they're going to have a lot of fans, a lot of happy fans at Bryant-Denny Stadium for years to come.
What do you think of what USF is doing? Man, they are making some big money. They're doing some 2-for-1 deals, guaranteeing themselves $1 million. And what's really amazing me is they're getting schools like Miami and Louisville and even Alabama to agree to come to South Florida. I love what they're doing.
I love it too. I think it's great. And I think that what you're seeing is the continued kind of jockeying between UCF and USF for status and for for making sure they have their footing in Florida. Florida has been, whether the programs are up or down, it's always been about the big three. You're Florida, Florida State, you're Miami. UCF has been the best program in Florida the past couple of years, most consistent.
By the way,
Um,
if I said UCF, I meant USF. I apologize. But
no. I don't.
Okay.
You said USF. I'm just touching on why USF is doing what they're doing. USF has been right there in the mix. But I think when USF is competing not just against the Big Three, but also against UCF for players, for notoriety. USF wants to make sure if they have a big season, they could be, a factor in the college football, either the college football playoff race or the New Year's Six. They want to make sure that they have quality opponents on the schedule. They want to make sure they're bringing in revenue and bringing in resources for the program. I think it's great because I think that UCF, as good as they've been, people have always challenged, well, why don't you play the big boys? Why don't you go and play these schools? USF is saying, hey, we're going to go out there. We're going to play Alabama. We're going to play Miami, Louisville, all these teams. We're not scared.
I love it. I want to ask you, Florida Atlantic, love or hate Lane Kiffin, this guy he's like the XFL of college football. He's pushing it, he's expanding it, and I love it. They're moving the entire student section at FAU behind the visitors' bench. Tell me that isn't amazing. I love it.
I think that's great. I love in any sport where you can have kind of an intimate setting with the students, and the students can be, right up on the field or in a position where they can impact the game or impact the crowd. And I love seeing it in basketball. I think it's easier to see it there. But in college football, a great student section is like nothing else. And I think that's an awesome move on FAU's part.
I think it's absolutely brilliant. Those are some high-dollar seats. I don't see it happening very many other places, but I absolutely love it. He's Matt Hladik.